Hi, this is Lee at IELTS, and in this video we'll be looking at IELTS test preparation, focusing on reviewing for the test. The first task that you will need to do on test day will be writing task 1. So some things to keep in mind. Remember to read the question carefully, analyze the data and plan. This should take you about 2 or 3 minutes, but don't spend any more than 5. You only have 20 minutes for writing task 1. To begin with, paraphrase the question rubric for your introduction. Don't try to be clever here, just keep it nice and quick. Also, try to find the 3 main points to write your overview. If you can't find 3 main points, 1 point is enough. Remember to check the time frames for the tenses you must use. So if you're talking about a time in the past, for example, 2015, you will be using the past perfect and the past simple. Make sure you compare data. This is one of the most important things for writing task 1. The question literally asks you to compare data where relevant. So make sure you're comparing. To do this, use comparatives. For example, bigger, better. Use superlatives as well. The best, the highest. Use conjunctions like while to join your clauses together. And use words like in comparison and in contrast. If there are 2 dates, remember to discuss the trends. So for example, if we're talking about the amount of bike riders between 2001 and 2009, we need to discuss how those numbers changed. Did they increase or did they decrease? And if they did increase, did they increase slightly or did they increase dramatically? Also, have 2 body paragraphs. The only task for writing task 1 that you can get away with 1 body paragraph is process diagrams. Now, if you have 2 graphs, your introduction should be a complex sentence. Just write your introduction as you normally would, use the conjunction while, and then write basically another introduction sentence. That's all you need to do for your introduction. Your overview, you will still be looking for 3 main points, but you'll be looking for the main point from graph 1, the main point from graph 2, and any correlation between them. In the body paragraph 1, the first graph will be discussed. So for example, if it's a pie chart, you're going to discuss the pie chart first. Now in body paragraph 2, the second graph is discussed. So if it's a table, you're going to discuss the table in the second paragraph. Don't try to be too clever, just keep them separate. Try to find some correlation between the graphs. Sometimes there is no correlation, but usually there is. Remember that a table is written just like a bar chart. If you haven't had much experience with tables, don't panic, just review your notes on bar charts and write it in a similar style. The second task that you will need to do on test day is writing task 2. Don't forget to read the question carefully, analyze it, and then plan your essay. Spend about 7 minutes doing all of this, but no more than 10. To write your introduction, remember to use the topic and the subtopic to write a background statement. You don't want to try and paraphrase all of the question rubric because you're going to change a couple of the words and that can change the meaning and you can lose marks. Next, paraphrase the rest of the question rubric, maybe it's view 1 and view 2, as quickly as you can. Always make sure you analyze the question properly. This is the place where most candidates lose their marks or lose the majority of their marks on test day. Make sure you have 2 body paragraphs. This shows your coherence and your cohesion. Also, try and answer the question using different perspectives if possible. Look at things from maybe the social perspective or from an economic perspective. For paragraph 1, you will need to discuss the advantages of view 1, problems, or question number 1. This will be your first paragraph. Therefore, the second paragraph will then talk about the disadvantages, view 2, the solutions to the problems, or question 2. Don't intermingle them, just keep them separate. You need to have an overarching idea for your paragraphs. Make sure your stance is clear throughout your essay. Don't forget to use modal verbs, comment adverbs, and your adjectives, both positive and negative kinds. Use lots of collocations to show your range of vocabulary and also to show your precise meaning. And use a variety of grammar. This means that you're going to look for places where you can put in a relative clause, or you can have a reduced relative clause. Look for places where you can put in a modal verb or a comparative. After you've completed your writing and the invigilators have collected and counted your writing papers, you will then move on to the reading. Now, when you're doing the reading, remember to read the instruction and circle keywords like no more than 2 words. Remember to prepare your text before trying to look for any answers. This means that you read the headings, the subheadings, the first sentence of each paragraph, and skim and scan through the rest of the text. After you've done that, use the strategies that you have learnt to answer the actual questions. So, for example, true, false, not given questions has a different strategy to list of headings questions. Also, write your answers directly on the answer sheet unless you're answering a gap fill question. You do not get 10 minutes to transfer your answers, so write your answers directly on them. Now, if it is a gap fill question, you need to check your vocabulary. You need to see that it fits into the sentence properly, because if you need to modify the word to make the sentence grammatically correct, the vocabulary is wrong. Also, look for paraphrase. You need to be looking for paraphrase all the time in IELTS. Be aware of traps, for example, things like opposites, negatives, and qualifying vocabulary. Check the grammar and do not change the spelling of the word. So, for example, this goes back to the first point. And probably the most important, answer every question. If you need to, guess. If you have nothing on your paper, you automatically get 0. But if you guess an answer, you have a percentage of a chance of guessing the right answer. So put something in. After you've finished the reading and the invigilators have collected and counted the papers, you will then move on to the listening. Like the reading, read and underline any instructions. For instructions like no more than 2 words. This is especially important for the listening because you only get to listen to the recording once, and you don't want to lose focus by having to go back to read the instructions when you're halfway through a listening. Remember to skim, read, and underline keywords so you have an idea of what's going to happen in the listening. Make predictions. When you make a prediction and you're listening to check your answer, you're going to be more focused because, for one thing, we all like to be right. Now prepare until you hear the phrases "now listen and answer" or "listen carefully." When you hear these, stop your preparation and go straight back to the top of the page or the top of the section that you need to be following. As soon as you hear that, listen and focus on the questions. And as you're listening, go through and tick off the key words so you know where you're up to in the recording. Sometimes they speak for 20 or 30 seconds with no answers, and then they'll give you 2 or 3 answers very rapidly. If you know what part of the recording you're up to with the answer sheet, you've got a better chance of answering these questions correctly. Now, do not check your answers when they tell you to. They'll say things like, "You now have 30 seconds to check your answers." Forget about that. That's a waste of your time. Go through and start reading and analyzing the next set of questions. Also, write your answers on the question booklet this time. You don't want to lose focus by trying to write your answers on the question sheet, and you get 10 minutes to do this after the listening anyway. Also, use this 10 minutes to answer any questions that you didn't hear the first time round. And again, like the reading, guess if you need to. Again, answer every question. Depending on the test center, your speaking test should be the last part of the testing day. Remember to answer in full sentences even when asked for your name. Remember that in section 1, you need to answer the question and explain. Speak for about 20 to 30 seconds or 2 or 3 sentences. You also need to know when to stop talking. In section 2, use the full minute that you were given to plan your answer. This is very important. A lot of candidates feel that they can just start speaking, but it is better to plan. Now, if you cannot answer the question exactly, slight modification is okay. So, for example, if the question is about reading books, but you don't read books, Discuss magazines that you do read instead. You still need to talk about the main topic. Remember that Section 3 is linked to the topic in Section 2. In Section 2, the questions will be about you and your experience. In Section 3, it's more going to be about your opinion. So you need to answer the questions abstractly. Try answering the question from different perspectives, for example, from economic, social, or educational perspectives. And another method is to answer the question, give a reason, and then give an example. A good piece of advice, I believe, is to try and combine both of these strategies in your answer. This will give you the best opportunity to answer the question in full. And now the final word. Remember to review all of your notes. Your notes are going to help you to remember the small little things that are going to make you do well on the test. Use the strategies that you have been preparing. Don't try anything new. Remember to get a decent night's sleep. Don't stay up all night panicking because you're going to be tired the next day. It's a long day. It's about 3.5 hours. You need to be focused for that length of time. So get a good night's sleep. Also, keep hydrated. Drink little bits of water, but don't overdo it. You don't want to be going backwards and forwards in the reading and the writing, wasting time going to the toilet. Treat the speaking test like you were just having another English lesson or just a conversation in a cafe. Treat it like an intellectual discussion, but it's not an academic discussion. And most importantly, don't panic. If you have prepared properly, you will do well on the test, so just relax. Good luck. This has been Lee at IELTS. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. I'll see you later.